Hi everybody, welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra. Today on John's Briefs, we're here with the Justice Bringer attorney, Terry Johnson from Firearms Legal Protection. He took umbrage with a phrase that I used, that the judge in a trial is the referee, the umpire, so I'm gonna let him set me straight. Firearms Legal Protection just started a 100% free monthly newsletter to bring quality, accurate information about legal self-defense to good, sane, sober, moral, prudent people like you. Go sign up for free, no-hassle help for your self-defense at the link in the description and thank them for sponsoring today's lesson. So Terry, you didn't like that phrase. I said that a judge, their job in a trial is to basically be an umpire, to call balls and strikes, to make sure that the attorneys are abiding by the rules and that the finder of fact is presented a fair case and the best case that the prosecution can make. The defense is given a robust defense. And that the verdict is the most legal and just verdict available. And you think that's hogwash?
In theory, John, if it worked that way, I would 1,000% agree with you. In theory.
In theory, this is what it's supposed to be.
Sure, yes. Just like, how many of us have watched a sporting event, whether it's college football, professional football, etc. And we notice that, and I know I'm going to get someone upset, but certain teams get better calls than others.
And certain players, you get star players, and star players get star calls. We talk about, with my friend Spencer Johnson, he knows that Michael Jordan's the greatest player in the history of the NBA, but Michael got star calls.
Listen, I was back in the day of the Bad Boys, and I watched the treatment that Jordan all of a sudden started getting. So yes,
that's salty.
It's all right. We got our rings.
Yeah, definitely did.
But again, a judge the judge's job is to make sure that a case follows the rules. Now, here's a question. You talk about balls and strikes. Let's talk about it even from a baseball analogy. When a pitcher starts to pitch, should it matter who the umpire is?
In a perfect world, whatever umpire is there should call the same strike zone. Everything should be right.
Right.
And of course, every umpire has their own strike zone.
Right. So it may be a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, a little bit high, a little bit low. So in some cases, it's going to make a difference. Then you have to look at the bias of the judge. And what do I mean by that? Did the judge practice before they took the bench? They come from a criminal defense firm. Do they more likely than not come from the background of the government, which is prosecution?
And a judge is an attorney, right? And a judge always gets appointed after practicing law on some level.
Yes, correct. And the question truly comes down to, at that point, what are their tendencies?
Right.
So you have some judges that are so pro-prosecution. You've got to bring a tremendous argument or something, on the other side to say, wait a minute, you can't do this. And it's the same on the other side. There are some that are so pro-defense that, the prosecution has got to bring a different case. And again, one of the things that you always look at, from a trial attorney standpoint, my first question is, where's the trial happening? Because again, jurisdiction is very important, because to me, I now know the players of the game. So is this, what's the home, because you are always the visiting team as the defendant. Think about that.
So I think this is, that is an interesting thing, that the defense is always the visiting team.
Well, even think about it from this way, in a criminal trial, who gets to sit closest to the jury? Prosecution.
Yeah.
Right? Who gets to go first and last? Prosecution. So you are always the visitor in that arena.
Well, and I think we can see this even, what probably most people are familiar with would be the appellate courts. When you're in the Second Amendment world, the Ninth Circuit does not love Second Amendment rights generally.
Correct.
It's gotten a little better recently, but not great. The Supreme Court is probably the one more than anything else. And so right now people say, the Supreme Court has a 6-3 conservative majority. I would argue 5-3-1, but it is, I think it's just wrong as a football bat that we have that idea, because the judges should be simply calling balls and strikes.
They should be,
but they have their own background and they're humans. And really, this is that question of what's my theory of the law.
And it comes down to, a judge, sometimes you got some clients they just don't like. They just don't like your client. They may not like you. They may not like the prosecutor. And, you know, again, you don't see it as blatant in some places, but I've had judges tell me, you know, at sidebars, you know, I don't like your client.
Oh, thanks, Your Honor.
Judge. I had one judge tell me, I'll never forget, and I won't say where or who the judge is, but this judge said to me, you know, he looked at my client, he said, that looks like the guy that robbed my house a few weeks ago.
Oh. I'm gonna get a fair shake out of this one.
Yeah.
So now in criminal proceedings, or civil, I suppose, do you have any choice over which judge presides?
No, you do. It's called forum shopping, and you don't get the opportunity to forum shop. So generally, it goes either to, they do it in a, I hate to use the term a drawing, but there is some way that some procedure that they use in cases where you have counties that have multiple criminal judges. It might be the first 3 go to this one, the next 3 go to this one. It may be every other one. Now, if you're in a jurisdiction that just has one judge that hears it all, obviously.
You're gonna get that judge.
Right.
So you don't get to choose. I know that there are some times where people say, well, we want to move, you know, jurisdictions, or we want this tried somewhere else because we don't feel like we can get a fair trial here.
And that's mostly with the jury, not necessarily the judge.
Right. And if we feel like the judge has done something wrong, it's
Good
not
luck.
It's not necessarily then about what the jury's got going on, but sometimes that's what appeals are made of.
Well, here's the first thing, you know, the court system is going to protect its integrity, right? So in theory, if a judge can't be fair, the judge should stand up and say, I can't hear this trial because of
I have a conflict of interest or whatever.
But guess who gets to make that decision? The judge.
Right.
So you know, you can make the argument, Judge, that we believe you should recuse yourself, and all that's going to do is get the judge mad and upset.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, I'm not getting this call, I'm not getting that call, and then you start playing for the appeal.
Well, and sometimes that's where it goes. So next time here on John's Briefs, we're going to talk about this appeal process. And in particular, I'm even going to bring up a case that I know has caused a lot of heartburn in America for the last couple of years, and where these appeals happen and how they are useful and why we have this system. So again, is a judge perfect and impartial judge? Now, just like an umpire in baseball should be the same balls and strikes. We do have a system of review on that, and you, generally speaking, get to vote on judges in your jurisdiction, and maybe you should vote better.
Know before you vote.
Know before you vote, but they should be an impartial judge. Are they all the time? No, they're human beings. So, but that's what you get, and sometimes you got to just play for the appeal when you get a judge whose particular construction you don't like. But that's part of the system, and one of the reasons that we say stay out of court. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? That's one of the reasons you want to stay out of court. So, Terry, appreciate the knowledge, man.
Thank you.